face Baltimore Orioles as we welcome you to Sunday Night Baseball presented by Taco Bell. It is the Orioles and the New York Yankees here at Camden Yards as we close out the so-called first half of the season with a rubber match of this three-game series between a couple of divisional rivals in a very unusual division right now. So many injuries and teams struggling, and at the moment, after a Blue Jay loss to Tampa Bay earlier today, the Orioles are 3.5 up on the Blue Jays and 4 up on the Yankees heading into this game tonight. Hi, everybody, and welcome to Baltimore. Dan Schulman and John Kruk, glad you're with us tonight here at Camden Yards. The Orioles are known more for their offense than anything else, and the guy who's done the most for them offensively so far this year, having a great year, is Nelson Cruz.
Yeah, Dan, not quite the LeBron James signings that the Cleveland Cavaliers have, but the best free agent signings so far in this baseball season. Second in the league in both home runs and RBIs. With Chris Davis struggling, he has been a godsend to this team. This offense is predicated on the home run ball, and Nelson Cruz delivered more than any.
And he is the centerpiece of a very potent lineup with a lot of power. But if you're going to win consistently, if you're going to win in the month of October, as we all know, you need more than just offense. You need pitching as well. And we're going to see a young man on the mound tonight, Buster, who the Orioles hope is going to be a big part of their team in the second half of the season.
And, Dan, every year you see a young pitcher come up and make an impact in a pennant race, and maybe that's going to be Kevin Gausman of the Baltimore Orioles, a first-round pick in 2012. Average fastball velocity of 95.1 miles per hour, the third best in the American League. Now, the Orioles have kind of done a reverse Strasburg with him. You remember Strasburg was shut down at the end of the year. Well, the Orioles limited him at the beginning of this year, so they're hoping he pitches for them in August, September, and October, Dan.
All right, Buster, thank you. It'll be Kevin Gausman in the Orioles taking on Derek Jeter in the New York Yankees. Jeter will not get a few days off. He's headed to Minneapolis for his final All-Star game this week. But first, he and the Yankees will try to win a series and pick up a game in the standings. ESPN Sunday Night Baseball is presented by Taco Bell. Sometimes you gotta live Mas. And in part by New Axe Hairstyling, because first impressions count. Back with the Yankees and the Orioles after this.
celebrating our 25th season as the national game of the week. ESPN Sunday Night Baseball.
And welcome to Camden Yards in Baltimore, the warehouse out in right field. This was the ballpark that changed so much for baseball ballparks, and it still is as nice a place to come to and see a ball game as it was the year they opened it. The Yankees and the Orioles here tonight as we take a look at the Yankee lineup, brought to you by Taco Bell. And at the top of the order, Brett Gardner having a nice season, getting on base, stealing bases, scoring runs. Derek Jeter batting second. Jacoby Ellsbury DHing tonight, and he is batting third. As you look at Jeter's numbers against the Orioles, of course, he's been around a long time, has had a lot of hits there in his division, so he's done some damage against them over the course of his career. On the mound, a guy that I know a lot of people are excited about here in Orioles country, young right-hander Kevin Gausman. See his numbers this year, 6 starts. He's been up and down. They've kept him in the minors. They've watched his pitch count. They've given him some extra time, but it sounds like he's free to go. He's free to pitch now, second half of the year, and they plan on making him a key part of their rotation.
And regular in the rotation, they're not going to have to worry about his pitch count. They're not going to have to worry about his innings. He is ready to go up to October and into October if the Baltimore Orioles get there.
And right now they are the leaders in the American League East. Last time they won the division was 1997, although they did go to the playoffs under Buck Showalter as the wild card team 2 years ago.
And a cold front moving in with Buck with the big windbreaker on, so we could expect some freezing temperatures coming up here in about the second, third inning. Superstitious, I think, maybe a little.
Maybe a little.
Yeah,
maybe.
He probably won a game in April when it was cold with Gausman pitching in the minor leagues, and he thought, well, I'll wear this to, he'll know why he's wearing it. No one else will, but he will.
Gausman throws hard, averages 95 miles an hour with his fastball. Also a good changeup and a work-in-progress slider.
Yeah, third best pitch is that slider, but the changeup is an out pitch for him. He throws 2 of them, a split changeup and a circle changeup. And he wears glasses, which I never like facing someone with glasses.
Why's that?
I didn't think he could see.
At least he's wearing the glasses.
Well, that's a good point, too. Better than squinting, I guess.
Gardner, Jeter, Ellsbury, the Yankees in road grays here as we get ready for baseball on the top of the first, waiting for Nick Markakis to make sure the gate's closed. It's like a Little League game where you yell out to the right fielder, close the gate.
Yeah.
Nobody's out in the bullpen yet, so he's got to go do it himself.
Well, you mentioned this ballpark. This was a ballpark that a lot of the other new ballparks, when they came in, I know Citizens Bank, the Phillies people came here, talked to the architect. They actually, I think they even hired the same architect who built this one for Citizens Bank Park also.
Gausman bounces in his first offering. They've had big crowds on Friday night and again yesterday, over 45,000 in each game. It looks like a smaller crowd, still a good crowd, but a smaller crowd here tonight. We're on Sunday night with the All-Star break upon us as Gausman misses low and quickly falls behind 2-0 on Gardner. 89 degrees, so it is windbreaker weather.
It is, yeah. I was hoping they had brought some heaters up here for us.
There's a strike. It was called by Doug Eddings, the home plate umpire tonight. Marvin Hudson's at first, Corey Blazer at second, and the crew chief Jim Joyce is at third. And a ball ripped to deep right field, and the Yankees strike early. Number 9 on the season for Brett Gardner.
Yeah, and with 3 fastballs thrown, 2 for balls, 1 for strikes, Gardner's still ahead in the count. He had that time after seeing 1 or 2 fastballs, you could time it pretty good. And Gausman threw that pitch right down the center of the plate. And Brett Gardner, even though he's considered a little guy in baseball, he provides a little pop in the top of that lineup and gives the Yankees an early 1-0 lead.
Now Derek Jeter. And a bouncer to third. Lots of time for Manny Machado for the night's first out. Yeah, I think you're right, Crucky. I think if you ask people about Brett Gardner's power, they might assume he hits 3-4 homers a year. He's on pace for 15 or 16 home runs this year.
Yeah, and not much more you can ask from a leadoff guy, because you know, if he was one of those leadoff guys who's just there because that's where they think he's best for the team, Brett Gardner's a true leadoff hitter. He can steal bases, like you said, leads the Yankees in on-base percentage, and that can happen too if you just think you can throw fastballs and not want to walk him to put him on base.
There's Jacoby Ellsbury batting third. He is DHing tonight, hitting .283, 6 homers, 42 RBIs, and 24 stolen bases. First year of a 7-year deal with the Yankees. And of the 3 big name newcomers, Ellsbury, McCann, Beltran, Ellsbury having by far the best year. McCann has not hit like he normally does, and he's hobbled by a sore foot right now. And Beltran has had his share of injuries. He's currently on the DL, on the 7-day concussion DL right now. McCann's hitting only .238. Beltran's down at .216. And these were guys they obviously expected would help boost the offense.
Yeah, and well, McCann's up to .238. He's struggling around the 200 mark for a lot of the season. He's starting to get a little bit hot. But yeah, and this is not a typical Jacoby Ellsbury year. You know, the batting average is below 300. The power numbers aren't there. I mean, he's one of the best leadoff hitters in baseball when he was with Boston. Now has to hit third here with the Yankees because of out of necessity with the way their lineup has struggled and with injury. Uh-oh.
3-1. And a fastball got in on his hands. A little flare to shallow center, but plenty of time for Adam Jones, the 3-time Gold Glover, to make it look easy. Well, they still don't like Mark Teixeira around.
Well, he grew up not far from here. And
they wanted him to be wearing Orioles.
Yeah, I guess they had a chance of signing here. 90. Got that one up to 97. He might be getting loose.
Shift is on, as it almost always is against Teixeira from the left side. Even with a guy who throws 97.
Well, Mark Teixeira is a top hand rollover dead pull hitter. You know, with 2 outs and no one on base, you got 1 run on the board. He's trying to get another one.
And Machado alone on the left side of the infield. Of course, he has played some shortstop in his professional career as well. Hardy on the other side. Scope out in shallow right.
This is where Teixeira's just got to set on fastball, look for a spot, either middle in, and try to get it going.
And he hits it over the head of Scope into right field. Gets all the way to the wall. He's thinking 2. And he is out on the tag. The throw coming in on the fly from Nick Markakis to end the inning. One of the best defensive teams in baseball, the Baltimore Orioles, and we see an example of that early as Markakis throws out to share a nice tag by Hardy. 1-0 Yankees through half an inning. Taco Bell is brought to you by State Farm. For auto, home, life, and banking, get to a better state. Look at the Babe Ruth Museum here in Baltimore. You see Earl Weaver's jersey, also an exhibit there commemorating Cal Ripken breaking Lou Gehrig's consecutive games played streak when he reached 21-31 back on September the 6th, 1995. Back inside Camden Yards now for the bottom of the first. Here come the Orioles, and a look at their starting lineup tonight. Brought to you by Taco Bell. They have the second most home runs in the majors, behind only the Blue Jays, and they're closing fast for first. That's the good news, but the flip side of the coin sometimes is, can they win consistently without the benefit of the home run?
Yeah, and that's been the struggle. And, you know, when you watch yesterday's game, Shane Green was just masterful. Fastballs out of the strike zone, letting them see it, and then striking guys out with the slider. He got Nelson Cruz 3 times with that slider in yesterday's game.
The Orioles just 9-20 in games in which they have not homered so far this year. There's Chase Whitley, who came on in relief his last time out. That was on Wednesday in a 14-inning game against the Indians. His other 10 appearances with the Yankees this year have been starts, and the first 6 or 7 of them went very well. He got roughed up his last 3 times out, but their rotation is in such a state of disarray right now with the news about Masahiro Tanaka. Of course, Nova's on the DL, Pineda's on the DL, Sabathia's on the DL, and all of them sound like potentially, some we know are serious injuries. The others sound like they could be. As Teixeira makes a nice stop, and Markakis is retired. And right now, Joe Girardi's just trying to figure it out day by day, turn by turn through the rotation, who the starter is.
Well, this is something that the New York Yankees have to do. If you don't have big strikeout guys in your rotation anymore, Kuroda can do it. Green did it yesterday, but not on a consistent basis. They have to catch the ball. Mark Teixeira, one of the best at it at his position. Yeah, I was talking to Joe today, and he said, who'd have thought that our oldest starter would be our most durable? The only one that hasn't been hurt, and that's Kuroda.
Yeah. Here's Steve Pearce, and what a job he has done recently for the Orioles, hitting for a lot of power. A guy who they actually designated for assignment and then released, just kind of an administrative thing. Chris Davis was hurt, and usually you have to wait 30 days for a player you release to re-sign with you unless somebody gets hurt and you play a man short on your roster. So they said to him, we're going to release you, but we're going to bring you back. You just got to trust us. He was claimed on waivers by Toronto, refused the assignment on the basis of the Orioles' promise to bring him back. They did a couple of days later, and then he's been playing all the time since, and he's got 11 home runs and 185 at-bats.
Yeah, it tells you it's a guy who's bought into what the Orioles are selling. They bought into what Buck Showalter was telling. And, you know, I've known Buck for a long time. He's an honest man. And when they told Steve Pearce, you know, look, accept this, we'll bring you back, and they did. And he's getting playing time, and he's rewarding them for their honesty. I don't know if I would have done it, but
the 2-1 from Whitley, and it's fouled back 2-2. On deck, the All-Star Adam Jones, who had a nice moment on the field before the game, along with Nelson Cruz and Matt Wieters, the other Oriole All-Stars. Wieters, of course, injured. It was Cruz who's headed to the All-Star game. He's had a monster first half. Wieters was voted as the starting catcher in the American League, but he's undergone Tommy John surgery. Won't be back until next year. And a swing and a miss there by Pearce for the second out. We'll talk to Matt Wieters, by the way, in the 6th inning of tonight's game. Got to be bittersweet to go out of the field. There you can see the right arm of Wieters, a catcher, a leader, and a guy it's got to be tough just sitting there and watching baseball when you want to play every day.
Yeah, and Buck told us earlier in the year he's not a great guy to sit down during a game, and I couldn't imagine having an injury and having to sit out for a remainder of the season when, you know, he was off to a great start offensively. We know defensively what he can do, but have to sit there and have to just watch your team play. It's got to be as tough a thing as there is to do.
So 2 down, and here's Jones. Having a big year, hitting over 300, hitting for power, driving in runs, playing good defense. And you'll see him not only Tuesday night in the All-Star game, but tomorrow night in the Home Run Derby as well here on ESPN. Up at Target Field in Minneapolis, you'll be there, Mr. Kruk, along with Chris Berman.
Yeah, out on the field. Supposed to be cool, which I'm very happy about.
You're very happy about that.
Yeah.
That's most of what we talked about today.
Yeah.
How happy you were about
A couple years ago in Kansas City, it wasn't really cool. But Adam Jones came over and ate a big old thing of ribs that were brought out to us. And I said, "You want to put the headsets on?" He said, "No, man, I'm too busy eating."
Bounce it off his foot or his leg, but appears to be all right. It's 1-2. Have you got a favorite, or are you willing to share that at this point?
Sure. I'm picking Giancarlo Stanton. I just 6'5", 250. Yeah, sure. Why not? Not that the other guys are small that are in it, but he's pretty special. And the one that deep down I would like to see do really well, Todd Frazier.
Yeah.
Good story. Brian Dozier's a great story, being a twin, and Justin Morneau, of course, coming back to Minnesota.
Just inside. Well, that's a pretty good looking pitch there by Whitley, and Jones took it just off the plate. Jones not a guy who takes many pitches.
Yeah, this one tricked him. He wasn't looking for that fastball in, but it did run off the plate a little bit. But, those are pitches that Chase Whitley would love to have, because he's not overpowering. He's not a big strikeout guy. And if he has to throw the ball over the center of the plate, it's not a fun thing for the Yankees.
Ground ball to short, backhanded by Jeter on a bounce to Teixeira to end the inning. 3 up and 3 down go the Orioles. 1-0 Yankees at the end of 1. John Kruk and Buster Olney with you Sunday Night Baseball on ESPN. It's something you don't see every day. Kevin Gausman throwing his first warm-up pitch from behind the mound to the back of the mound.
Well, the big thing with the tall guy is throwing downhill, but apparently his first warm-up pitch, he kind of thought, let me see how it is uphill. I don't know what that does. I can't tell you what it does. I can't even lie to you and make something up to make it sound like I know what it does. Someone probably told him it works, and it'd be a good thing for him to do. And there you go. Kind of like the manager wearing a windbreaker.
Here's Brian McCann to lead it off for the Yankees.
Ball.
And a ball just inside to McCann, hitting .238, 10 home runs, 39 runs driven in. But hot lately. The bat is starting to come around. The bat they expected to get when they signed McCann to a big 5-year deal in the offseason.
A big shift right there. J.J. Hardy in normal second base position, and Jonathan Scope way out in right center, or right field.
So it's Machado, and he doesn't catch it. It looked like he was going to. Then it looked like he was under the assumption Pierce would come in, and Pierce was clearly under the assumption that Machado would catch it.
Well, I don't think Steve Pierce saw this ball, but you see right there, Machado puts his glove up. Now, to me, that means to the outfielder, I got it.
Yep.
Now, it might have been one of those, I don't see it, where is it type of deal. That's communication, a nonverbal communication that they really messed up. And to me, Machado's the one that stopped Steve Pierce from catching that ball by putting his glove up.
And didn't look like Pierce was ever calling for it either. You can see he's just chomping on his gum there. He didn't say anything.
But as soon as Machado puts his glove up, that means to me, stop. He's got it.
McCann will take it because he's credited with a base hit on that play, and that's where I'd love to see. And this is just an official scoring thing, but that's an error. I mean, I know nobody touched it, but that's an error.
It is an error. This is the big league. Someone should catch that one. Yeah. But we've all gotten those hits, so let's not change it yet.
Ryan Roberts, the batter, the former Oriole. Watch it in real time. And boy, it looked like Machado was almost underneath it the whole time, or at least was acting like he felt he was underneath it.
Once he put his glove up, that's the slow down for Steve Pierce sign. And once the glove stayed up, that's I got it sign.
And we just said that the Orioles are as good a defensive team as there is in baseball, and they are. I mean, they've got talented defenders all over the field, and Machado is certainly among them.
He is maybe the best fielding third baseman in baseball right now. But can you imagine if they did award hits with those? The sabermetrician, those defensive metrics people would go ballistic. How would you judge them now?
Machado, the platinum glove winner. What that means is you take all of the gold glove winners in each league, and one player is judged to be the best defender at any position in his league. And last year it was Machado in the American League and Yadier Molina in the National League.
I think Yadier retired that platinum thing.
They might call it the Molina Award once he retired. And a swing and a miss from Roberts together. Roberts returned here Friday for the first time as a visitor, hit a home run on the first pitch he saw, but he strikes out here in his first at bat tonight.
Yeah, he ambushed the first pitch fastball, hit a home run on Friday, and then been curveballs and curveballs ever since. The great equalizer.
Here's Ichiro hitting an even 300 on the season. And a good stop behind the plate from Caleb Joseph. Of course, with Wieters out, somebody's got to pick up the slack. You spoke a little bit earlier tonight on a Sports Center hit you did about Nick Hundley, who they picked up from San Diego. Caleb Joseph is a guy who has done a lot of catching as well. He's got some power, and he's got a good relationship with Gausman. They have worked together in the minors as well.
Huntley sitting between two pitchers right there. Chen and Tillman. Third guy leaning over there giving his advice on how to pitch. Don't know who that was. I like Flaherty.
And Ichiro late on that fastball from Gausman at 96 miles an hour. 1-2. We mentioned he is one of the hardest throwers in baseball. His average fastball is at just over 95 miles an hour. The third fastest among American League starters, behind only Yordano Ventura of Kansas City and Garrett Richards of the Angels. might have a play. And he was out of play. I think he caught it. I think he's got the ball. He does, but he was already out of play. He was down the stairs, and now we're being told, we couldn't see as he disappeared, that he didn't catch it. But I think he was already out of play when he made an attempt on it. And he did not catch it. So out of play and didn't catch it. But a good effort nonetheless.
Yeah, the Yankees just jumped up there to hold him back. Teixeira wasn't even watching. You see Teixeira there in the background? He wasn't even watching Machado. Maybe seeing if McCann was tagging.
And a fly ball to center. Jones back to make the catch. 2 down. McCann back to first. Jones is one of these guys, not that it always is easy, but boy, he's got a grace and a fluidity in the outfield about him that makes it look easy.
Yeah, and that play there, you know, he started out, he turned to his left, his glove side, and you know, a lot of guys will turn the other way and try to backpedal to catch that. He just did what you're taught as a young kid, is do the 360 turn and then glide back to the ball where you think it's going to be, and that's where it ended up in his glove. He was so graceful out there in center field.
The batter is Kelly Johnson. He's getting a start in left field tonight. He normally is an infielder, plays first, second, third. Left-handed bat they thought would play well with the short porch in Yankee Stadium. One correction I want to make. Yadier Molina did not win the Platinum Glove Award last year in the National League. He won it the previous 2 years. Andrelton Simmons of the Atlanta Braves won the award last year. So my apologies. Simmons and Machado.
So Yadier just won the regular Gold Glove.
And you could see Simmons locking it up for a while, or certainly locking up Gold Gloves for a while, and competing for that Platinum Glove.
Machado even got the platinum thing on his glove.
There's the changeup at 88, and it's taken low. 2 balls, 2 strikes.
There it is. That's the platinum.
You're right.
That's just to let everyone know. Don't hit it to me. Yeah. There's a really good chance I'm not going to miss it.
Although he missed one tonight.
Well, he didn't miss it technically. Just first 2 innings here with Gausman. He's not there's Solarte on deck, but he hasn't commanded his off-speed pitch. He's not bouncing it a lot. That might be an omission pitch if you're the Yankees.
Fastball in on his hands. Tapper back to the mound to end the inning. 1-0 Yankees going to the bottom of the second. All-star Nelson Cruz will lead it off for the Orioles. Nelson Cruz, he had the 28 home runs and 74 RBIs already this season. Coming up to lead it off for the Orioles. He is headed to the All-Star game.
2 home runs tonight. He can jump in the lead in both home runs and RBIs. So that's something we have to look forward to.
Let's take a look at the hot zone for Nelson Cruz against right-handed pitching this year. Red's awfully good, so he's crushing the ball, most of them on the inner part of the plate.
Yeah, and that the open stance gets it. He can get to that ball a little quicker than if he had a closed stance. And the one that is surprising is that one right there. That same pitch right there that Whitley just threw. That he's hitting over 350 on a pitch down and away. And if you watch yesterday's game, they just stayed down there, and he just was swinging through them, every one of them.
A bit of a hanging slider there, and he fouled it back 0-2. The only person in the American League with more home runs than Nelson Cruz is Jose Abreu, an outstanding rookie of the White Sox, who has 29. And Miguel Cabrera is 1 RBI ahead of Cruz. Abreu's 1 RBI behind him. Up the middle, a base hit. So from one end of the spectrum to another, a guy having a monster year, now to a guy who had an incredible year last year, Crucky, and where has it gone? What is going on with Chris Davis?
Well, the off-speed pitch is what's gone on. Last year, you see 2013, the red 350 or better, and you see that 310 batting average against off-speed pitches, and this year only 128. He's always been a guy that will chase pitches. He's always been a guy that strikes out a lot. Last year, it looked like he took a lot of those tough pitches and worked it to get pitches he could hit. This year, though, not so much. And there you see it, the first pitch changeup, down and away, pulls off of it, trying to hit the ball to right field. You know, he needs to me, he needs to think to himself, left center to the left field line, and the off-speed pitch, naturally, he'll catch up to it and pull it.
Let me ask you, as a guy who had a lot of success at the major league level, but when you did encounter a slump, how important is confidence even for a major league baseball player? How fragile can that be sometimes?
Oh, confidence is very fragile. You know, and it doesn't take long. It's not like you can be, you know, you have to go, oh, okay, I'm struggling for a month, but I'll get hot. It's a series. It's 4 games, 5 games, whatever. And to me, the telltale sign with me was, and he'll do this too, he'll chase pitch or see a lot of, you know, take a lot of strikes too. But I noticed my struggles were getting pull happy, trying to pull the ball, hitting a lot of grounders to second base. That's when I knew that, you know, I'm headed for trouble. There's the first pitch by Whitley, a changeup, then a fastball in that he pulls foul, and then again another fastball. Look, whether it was below the strike zone or just at the knees, that's a pitch with 2 strikes you got to hack at. You can't just, you know, I don't care if you walk 120 times a year, you got to still see that pitch and, you know, and swing at it. You can't take something that close.
J.J. Hardy, the batter. And a guy like Davis, a guy like Ryan Howard, who also in his heyday had a ton of success hitting the ball to left center field. They don't need to pull the ball to do damage. Right?
No. Chris Davis can miss hit balls to left field for home runs, but that's the thing, is you have success. Chris Davis had huge success last year, hitting the ball to left field, center field, and of course pull home runs.
Nice stop at third by Solarte. The long throw to second for 1. That's all they'll get, but a good play to force the lead runner.
Solarte makes an unbelievable play right here. That ball gets past him. You know, you're looking at second and third with only 1 out. But this is what I like too. There wasn't a rush to throw. Even though he's a little off balance, he didn't try to throw 100 miles an hour so Roberts can try to turn a double play. You're not going to get Hardy on that. You know that. He got the 1 out. Now, you know, it's going to take an extra base hit to score Hardy from first base.
So now Machado. And Machado got off to a very slow start this season. A guy, of course, who has enormous potential, had a big year last year. Very slow start, had the suspension after the bat throwing incident and that whole situation with the Oakland A's, but he has come on of late. He is hitting the ball very well the last 10 games or so. And I don't think anybody still questions the enormous upside that he has. He's only 22 years old.
Yeah, at 22 years old, is first time, you know, it's probably the first time in his life he's not had the ultimate success of, you know, being a great player when he first came back off the injury. And he did struggle, you know, but like I said, he's going to figure it out because he's just too good not to.
Little looper in for a base hit. Hardy will go first to third. Ichiro overruns it, but it doesn't wind up costing the Yankees at all. First and third, 2 down.
Ichiro had it in mind to try to throw out Hardy at third base, but you know, this is how you get out of slumps. This is how you hit 300. That's a ball in on him. He fights it off. You watch Ichiro. He was going to come up firing at third base to try to get Hardy. You know, once the bobble, there was no panic, knowing Hardy wasn't going to score on it.
And now the catcher and number 8 hitter for the Orioles, Caleb Joseph, hitting just 189, 3 homers, 12 runs driven in. Tough shoes to fill when you're asked to be one of the guys to help fill in for the loss of Matt Wieters. Although, as you said, in Nick Hundley, they've got a guy who's been in the majors for a while, and he's getting the bulk of the action.
Yeah, and he struggled when he first came over. You know, he said that it was because he was pressing. He wanted to impress the Baltimore Orioles. You traded for me. There's a reason you traded for me. I have to produce immediately. And once he learned how to relax, he's been a lot better.
Joseph just 2 for 24 with the runners in scoring position as Hardy at third. Machado at first, 2 down, and the Orioles trailing 1-0 in the bottom of the second. Baltimore winning an extra innings game on a Friday night. Yesterday, the Yankees coming back and winning behind a terrific performance from pitcher Shane Green. Another one of the many pitchers trying to fill in for the Yankees because of all the injuries. Hiroki Kuroda is the only starter from the beginning of the year who is still in the rotation.
And they're only 4 out, and I think that's what's the amazing thing. It's, you know, you take 4 starters off of any team, you're done.
Yankees have used 26 different pitchers this year at the All-Star.
And that's the thing. Like over the course of a season, you know, when you lose 4 starters, and let's say these 4 are out for the rest of the year, we don't know yet. But CC looks like he is. We know Nova is. Pineda, you don't know. Tanaka, you don't know. You know, can these young pitchers sustain this till the end of September? And that's something that remains to be seen. And that's why you would think if they think they're still in it, they think that the division is so flawed, will Brian Cashman go out and get another starter?
That's why this game's so big. They'll either be 3 out or 5 out at the All-Star break, depending on what happens tonight. Joseph draws the walk to load the bases. Buster, what do you hear? Are the Yankees actively looking for a starting pitcher?
Yeah, they've been actually looking for starting pitching for the last 7 weeks, which led to them making that trade for Brandon McCarthy. But let's face it, there are probably not a lot of great options for their situation, which is an organization without a lot of prospects. They probably have a little bit of money to spend, but not a lot. It will be interesting to see if they hang in this race, especially as we get into the second half and the tougher schedule for the Orioles and the easier schedule for the Yankees perhaps manifests itself. If they'll be more aggressive as you get closer to the trade deadline, for someone like a Cliff Lee of the Philadelphia Phillies, who's owed about $38 million over the next 2 years.
That's why the next couple of weeks are so important. There are a number of teams, Crucky, who may decide or have to decide the next couple of weeks, do we think we're contenders or do we think we're not?
Yeah, and I think that's where that extra wild card comes in. I think a lot of teams are tricking themselves into thinking, yes, we're still in it. But, you know, and that's a hard thing to do because, you know, like a veteran team, the rebuilding process, you know, like if you're the Philadelphia Phillies, you say, okay, we're going to trade Cliff Lee. With all the teams now that have the opportunity to make the playoffs, how do you know? How do GMs know like, okay, we need to blow this up and rebuild. I mean, look, the Chicago Cubs are doing it. They traded Hamel and Samardzija. So they're thinking, you know, maybe not this year.
Fairly well hit, but playable shy of the track for Gardner. That'll end the inning as the Orioles leave the bases loaded. Gardner making the play. Gardner responsible for the only run of the ball game so far with his first inning homer. And he's due up second for the Yankees when we come back. Brought to you by Taco Bell. Top of the third inning here at Camden Yards. 1-0 for the Yankees over the Baltimore Orioles.
Fans? That's what they were. They were fans.
Yannihervis Solarte leads off the inning for the Yankees and takes a strike. Sent back down to the minors. Called back up recently. Got off to a very hot start. The Yankees have been looking for some production at third base, and he provided it early. Side of the knees, 2 balls and a strike. Gausman makes it look kind of easy coming out there at 96-97.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like a forced 96 where he's trying to muscle up. It's very smooth.
And a big slow bouncer to Scope out at second for the first down.
Brett Gardner put the only run on the board for either team. And here's what you like about Brett Gardner. Sometimes he gets a little long with the stride. You see how short that stride was, how quick his hands exploded to the ball. Knowing that Gausman averages 95 mile an hour on his fastball, he knows he has to get to it quicker. 2-1 count. He's seen 3 fastballs prior to that one. He had it timed perfectly, and that's why the Yankees are in the lead, Dan.
His 9th home run of the season. Hit on the grass at third, Machado, as Gardner takes it a low ball 1. Some fans wanted to make sure they can document the last time they might see, depending on whether they come back, Derek Jeter in person. Been a lot of that going on this year, and you wonder if the All-Star game or something, you know, how Jeter comes out of the game, you know, what will happen to make it a moment for him, because something will happen, obviously, at the All-Star game.
Yeah, it's similar to the Mariano Rivera situation last year. It's amazing when he comes out of the dugout pregame to jog, to loosen up before the game. Standing ovation, people cheering, going crazy. And there was a lot of Orioles fans mixed in with the Yankee fans that did that.
Yep.
I think it just shows you what he's meant to the game of baseball and the way he played it. There's a lot of respect for him.
14th career All-Star selection, his 9th start. He's got the ball. Hey, not you. Her. Fan for life. Strike 3 call. Like Davis with the Orioles, he didn't like it. Same with Gardner of the Yankees.
Doug Eddings right here. It looks like it. That's that two-seamer that Buck Showalter was telling us about, and that's a perfect pitch according to K-Zone. That's a tough one because the lefty, your first instinct is to give up on that ball. You see it out of the hand. Halfway there, that ball's inside, inside, inside. That last second tail over the inside corner. You see Gardner right there. He still thinks it's a ball, but K-Zone says no.
And ball one to Jeter, who grounded out his first time up. Cal Ripken was the MVP of his last All-Star game, 2001 in Seattle. You think Jeter finds a way to get a couple of hits, American League wins, and maybe he snags it?
It wouldn't shock me. I think he would be the odds-on favorite if he does anything in the game.
And to center, a base hit. Well, this is a moment that Oriole fans remember fondly. Alex Rodriguez telling Ripken, saying, Joe Torre wants you to go play short. Even though at that point, of course, Ripken was the third baseman. And then he launched one out at Safeco. Of Chan Ho Park, Cal Ripken named the MVP of that game.
I think the most amazing thing about that, not that he moved over to shortstop and Alex had him go over there, and Joe Torre was in favor of it. Not the fact that he hit a home run, but he also hit a home run on the game he broke the record. Did you see how big Cal was compared to Alex? I mean, Alex is a tall guy.
Yep.
And I think people don't realize how big he was a big shortstop, Cal Ripken, but people don't understand how big of a man he was, or still is.
When you look at Manny Machado, who of course in the minors came up as a shortstop, the Orioles had a need at third, so they moved him to third, but he's a big guy too.
Yeah, it's just amazing how big and athletic some of these players are.
Ellsbury, the batter. That pitch runs off the outside corner, a ball and a strike.
That's why I keep hearing about the home run derby. Oh, it's in Minnesota, Target Field, too big. Really? Too big for who?
Not for Stanton.
Not for Stanton, not for Cespedes, not for any of them. Batista, come on, too big. Jeez. It's BP.
2-1.
Next year, the home run derby could be Cincinnati. Great American Ballpark. That kind of a, July, it's going to be hot. The ball's going to be flying.
Yes, it will.
Ooh.
Yep.
That river could get, I'm sure you're going to see a lot of boats out there in that river for that one. There's going to be some balls flying in there. Maybe they'll bring back Adam Dunn.
Changeup and a swing and a miss, 2-2. Now, you said earlier he throws two different kinds of changeups. One's like a splitter, one's like a circle change, and we've seen a changeup at 88. That one was at 84.
Yeah, and that was probably the circle change, because I think the split change you could probably throw harder than the circle change. I would imagine the circle change would be more of a straight down changeup, where the circle change will run away from a lefty.
Threw him another one.
You know, nowadays you can just look at, you used to be able to just look at the radar gun and say, okay, we can tell what pitch. But if that's a changeup at 87, my gosh.
Some people would kill for a fastball at 87.
Yeah, there's some guys who made careers out of less than that.
Yeah.
And it's not how hard you throw it, it's the differential in speed. You throw 96, 95 like Gausman, that changeup's got to be a little slower.
So with Gausman up, the Orioles have made all kinds of moves right now, taking advantage of the All-Star break and not needing as many starters. And right now, actually, Bud Norris and Miguel Gonzalez are in the minors just to stay fresh because of the off days. But when everybody gets back, if everybody gets back, they'll have 6 starters. And so Buck Showalter will have to choose 5 of them unless the choice is made for him by something unforeseen. But Gausman apparently is in the rotation to stay for the rest of the season after being up and down for much of the first half.
Yeah, I think right now, I think Tillman, of course, is going to stay in the rotation. Obviously, I think he's their best pitcher. Gausman will stay in. And I think Wei-Yin Chen will stay in because he's a lefty, and that's always a good thing to have a lefty in the rotation. And then after that, who knows?
Nice play at short by Hardy, and he fires it on to first in time to get to Speedy Ellsbury and end the inning. We are here in Baltimore. Crabs, one of the delicacies in these parts, back to the bottom of the third after this. Now some Cruz, Matt Wieters receiving their all-star jerseys and getting ready for a fun couple of days. Adam Jones will be in that Gillette Home Run Derby tomorrow night on ESPN at 8 Eastern. The All-Star Red Carpet Show presented by Chevrolet on MLB Network Tuesday afternoon at 3 Eastern, and then the game itself on Fox at 7:30 Eastern Tuesday night, and the Derby and the game can also both be heard on ESPN Radio. Here's Nick Markakis.
Peter Pasquarelli looking forward to covering that home run derby on the radio.
And part of the coverage along with John Schaube, Chris Singleton, Mark Kestisher, and others. Markakis grounded out his first time up, and he has also thrown out a runner tonight. Threw out Mark Teixeira, trying to stretch a single into a double. That is the 9th outfield assist for Nick Markakis. And Markakis and Jones, really two of the better throwing arms you'll see in the outfield. This was a great throw by Markakis and a really good play by Hardy.
Well, Nick Markakis has a great arm, like you said, Dan, and that's one of those that you don't worry about overshooting your second baseman / cutoff man, but J.J. Hardy, just unbelievable instincts to come off the base. A lot of guys would go around the runner the other way to get the ball, to try to just keep it in front of him, and J.J. Hardy was looking for an out.
Liner to left, and Johnson is there, one down. Well, Buck Showalter was talking about J.J. Hardy before the game and some of the plays that he can make. And, he's not the fastest shortstop. He probably doesn't have the most ground of anybody out there, but just his hand-eye coordination, what he can do on throws that bounce, really amazes us.
Buck was explaining to us. He said most guys, when they take a throw from the catcher that bounces, they take it this way and have to go down and then up for the ball as it takes the hop. J.J. Hardy has his glove like this, and he actually goes down for the ball, and that way it's already there to apply the tag. It's already down on the ground. He said not many guys can do that. He said I've never seen anyone do that in all baseball, but J.J. Hardy's he's a great shortstop. He's a great athlete, though. Great athletes can make that, figure out that's the way I have to do it to get the ball to the tag as quickly as possible. But it's nothing you would ever teach anyone in the game, of any kid, to do it that way.
Here's Pierce, who struck out his first time up. When you do something that amazes your teammates, other major league ball players, you're doing something pretty impressive.
Yeah, and it's amazing because it's like I said, it's nothing that you can't teach that. It's not like he went out one day and said, I'm going to do it, I'm going to work on this way to do it. It's just something that he figured out. This is the only way I can get to tag someone on a ball that's, from a throw from a catcher that's hopping, that short hops me, and this is the way I have to do it.
Pierce fouls it back, and Buster, J.J. Hardy's just one of a number of contract situations that the Orioles will have to deal with after the season, right?
That's right. J.J. Hardy's eligible for free agency, and he's made no secret of the fact that he wants to stay here, but they didn't make progress in his contract talks. That's probably number one on the front burner. Nelson Cruz is a free agent after this year. They'll probably give him some sort of a qualifying offer. But given what he's going to be looking for, maybe they won't be able to sign him. And then after next year, you're going to have Chris Davis, you're going to have Matt Wieters become free agents. Nick Markakis after this year has an option for about $17 million, and the Orioles have to decide whether or not to keep him.
Now, when you look at the Orioles and the amount of money they spend and the talent they have, do you and I kind of don't like the phrase small market, but do you consider this a small market franchise? How much can they compete and spend?
The way they spend money, yes, it's a small market. And remember, the only reason they got Nelson Cruz for $8 million is because he was asking for like a 3 or 4, 5-year deal, and coming off the suspension, teams were reluctant to give him that much. Once he got closer to spring training, he was a guy who, unlike Stephen Drew, he didn't want to miss spring training. And so, the Orioles made him the $8 million one-year offer. He takes it, and he's rewarded them, handsomely so far this year with that contract of only 1 year. But, when you look at the team, you look at all the guys that are potential free agents, depending on how Matt Wieters comes back from the Tommy John surgery, it's hard to find a catcher like Matt Wieters, a switch hitter, hit the middle of the lineup. You can find a first baseman that can not hit 53 home runs, obviously, but can hold down the job that Chris Davis has done. You can find a right fielder, I would imagine, somewhere. You can't. It's hard to find catchers.
Yeah, and there's no question that the Orioles really like Matt Wieters, but there was a huge gap when the Orioles last discussed a possible contract with Matt Wieters between what he was looking for and what the Orioles are willing to pay him.
He's the principal owner of the Orioles. Peter Angelos looking on, about to see the 10th pitch of this at bat. A good battle between Chase Whitley and Steve Pearce. There was a time, of course, when the Orioles were among the most consistent and successful franchises in all of baseball. They're definitely better now than they were for a long stretch. Had 14 straight losing seasons from 1998 through 2011. Had a wild card spot 2 years ago. Had a winning season and a third-place finish last year. And right now, they are the leaders in the American League East. Granted, an AL East that is not a great division this year. But they're in top spot right now as Pearce strikes out. Back in this era, they were among the elite in baseball. Won the World Series in 1983, but then didn't contend as much from 84 to 97. Didn't contend at all from 98 to 2011. Made the playoffs, won the wild card game, lost in the division series in 5 games actually to the Yankees 2 years ago. Won 85 games last year. Now here they are sitting 3.5 up in the American League East, a division that it looks like maybe 87, 88 wins a winner.
Yeah, it's not going to take the normal 94, 93, 94 games to win this division this year. It's, you know, is it parity or is it some parity mixed up with, mixed in with some mediocrity? Because it's not a great division. Only, three of the teams over 500. The Red Sox struggled. They've been struggling all year. Tampa Bay looks like they found a little bit of life, and they think they're back in this thing. I don't know, but I think it's going to take a monumental collapse and from the Orioles or the Jays for those two teams to get back in this thing. And the way the American League West has played out, there might not be a wild card coming out of the East this year.
The playoffs were to begin today. The wild card teams are the Angels and the Seattle Mariners.
How fun would that be? Just to get new, not the Angels so much, new teams in the postseason, but Seattle in the postseason would be great.
Angels have the second best record in all of baseball right now. Only Oakland's better than them. Look at that changeup.
Yeah, and the emergence of Garrett Richards has a lot to do with that, but Mike Trout having another MVP type season, and you think about where the Angels would be if they had a stable closer situation for the first 3 months of this season. Albert's healthy. Josh Hamilton, who was hurt for a while, is back healthy.
Whitley strikes out Jones. A good inning for the right-handers. Still 1-0 Yankees at the end of 3. Baseball, presented by Taco Bell, is brought to you by the new film Hercules, in theaters Friday, July 25th. The Babe Ruth Birthplace and Museum right here in Baltimore, just a few blocks away from this ballpark. Yes, Babe Ruth was born in Baltimore and played for the then minor league Baltimore Orioles, had his contract purchased by the Boston Red Sox. In 1916, went on to great success with the Red Sox, more as a pitcher early than a hitter. But boy, they noticed every time he pitched, he could hit the ball pretty well. He hit it a long way. And eventually, of course, he started breaking home run records, started hitting a ton of home runs as a member of the Red Sox. And then was sold to the New York Yankees, and that's when, he just blew the door off the record book.
That's when he became Babe Ruth.
Right, hitting 54 and then 59 and then 60. Hitting more home runs than a lot of teams did back in some of those years. Think about that.
Yeah, it's just impressive with I believe he still owns some pitching records.
He has, I think he has the lowest
World Series.
Yeah, the lowest World Series ERA of any pitcher ever. Certain minimum threshold of innings, but yeah.
They said he could have been a Hall of Fame pitcher if that's all he did was pitch.
Kind of made a good career choice, though. It seems.
Well,
like
yeah, but I mean, don't let the size fool you.
Yeah.
Gifted athletes.
Mark Teixeira skies one into left field. Pierce makes the catch. Next time we come here, Crucky, we got to go.
We do.
We got to go.
Detroit, grilled cheese and tomato soup.
That's
Baltimore.
Right. We got a busy agenda.
Yeah, Baltimore to see the Babe stuff. There's not one guy in baseball that can swing a bat that Babe Ruth.
How heavy? Like 36, 37 ounces, right?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. How did they do that?
Well, a lot of people say that because back then it was basically fastball, spitball, curveball. So you could, dial it up for the fastball. Now you see how guys pitch 96 miles an hour and they're trying to trick people with changeups 3-1.
Left-handed specialists and cut fastballs.
Yeah. Fork balls, splitters. Two different kind of splitters, two different fastballs, two different sliders.
But if you believe that the way to judge a player is to compare his numbers to those of his era, because it's hard to compare different eras. If that's what you believe, Babe Ruth stands alone. Yeah,
when you're out homering entire teams, that tells you you're probably better than everyone else. Yeah.
Pulled foul, 2-2 the count on McCann.
And the thing is, too, with him, everyone talks about the home run. 714 home runs, 60 home runs, or however many he hit, 60. Did he hit 60? When Roger Maris broke the record, of course, 61, but he hit for a high average.
This was driven to deep left, but room for Pierce. I think he had a 342 career average. Let me look that up. .342 with 714 homers. That works.
Yeah, that'll get you in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah. Let me see. Yep, 342. He hit 11 home runs with the Red Sox in 1918. That led the league. He hit 29 with the Red Sox in 1919. That led the league. Then he hit 54 the next year with the Yankees. Then broke his record the next year with 59 in 1921. And then broke it again in 1927 with 60. After he hit 60, he hit 54, 46, 49, 46, and 41 the next 5 years. I mean, well into his mid-30s. He was crushing. He's the Babe.
That's why it's hard to say, he's not the best player that's ever played because of what he's done, what he did in his era. No one dominated an era of baseball like Babe Ruth did.
3-1 the count on Brian Roberts.
The Angels had a coach who When I was playing, we went to spring training, and Jimmy Reese was actually roomed with Babe Ruth, and he would tell stories about him. And finish it after this break.
3 fly ball outs as the Yankees go in order. He was an all-timer as a Yankee, but from right here in Baltimore. ESPN tomorrow night from Target Field in Minneapolis. The captains are Jose Bautista and Troy Tulowitzki. You can see the teammates they have chosen. A new format this year. Instead of 4 and 4, it's 5 and 5. Only 7 outs in each round instead of 10. Everybody competes in the first round. The bottom 2 in each league are eliminated. The leader in each league gets a bye to the semis. And 2 and 3 go at it in the second round. And it'll end up being the American League champion against the National League champion for the Home Run Derby title.
Interesting, of the 10, only one lefty, Justin Morneau.
The former Twin.
Normally it's heavy with left-handed hitters in that Home Run Derby, but since Cespedes won it last year, they figured righties can do it. Let's go.
Cruz with a base hit his first time up. And Whitley falls behind, 2 balls, no strikes. Whitley out of Troy University. Was drafted in the 15th round by the Yankees back in 2010. Before that, played 2 seasons at Southern Union State Community College in Wadley, Alabama. And a guy who, out of necessity, has found his way to the big leagues and made some very good starts for the Yankees. Didn't go that deep into games most of the time, but in a couple he did. Went 7 innings, gave up 2 runs against Kansas City. Got a win, went 7 2/3, gave up 2 runs, got a win at Seattle. But in his last 3 starts before this one, was roughed up by the Blue Jays, hit pretty hard by the Red Sox, and pretty hard by the Twins as well. We mentioned the 1 relief appearance in the 14-inning game on Wednesday against the Indians, and now here he is starting in the final game before the break.
After 7 starts, you would think that the league would have a great idea of Chase Whitley and his repertoire, what he, if he falls into patterns, and that was the concern with Joe Girardi and the Yankees, was how would he do the second time through the league once once they got a book on him, once they saw what he has.
Here's Davis. Struck out looking, didn't like the call, thought the pitch was low. K-Zone kind of backed him up on that, although it was close. Shift on for the Yankees. And then he chases a changeup in the dirt. It's a ball and a strike.
And that's the one right there. You see the shift with, not as dramatic a shift because of with the runner on first base and less than 2 outs. They still have to be double play distance, but that's the difference in what Chris Davis is now and what he was last year.
Now he drives the ball to deep left field and gone.
I think once Chris Davis figures out that he doesn't have to try to pull everything, that pitch is down, middle in on the plate, but down out of the strike zone. And you look at the swing. That was a swing that he said, I'm not going to pull off. I'm not going to try to, overpower this ball to right field, force myself to pull it. That's a stay inside the ball, hit it the other way because he's strong enough to do it. That ball just took off his bat. First runs they've scored in a while. Shutout yesterday, the first 3 innings today.
First home run of the series for the Orioles, and a smile for Chris Davis. Haven't seen many of those lately. With the struggles that he's had, his 15th home run of the season. RBIs number 47 and 48.
Well, if that doesn't tell him to stay back on everything and just try to shoot everything to left field, because guys try to shoot the ball the other way, it's a single. He shoots it the other way, you get that result.
And now another bullet to left field. Over the head of Johnson and off the base of the wall. Hardy digging for second. And in there with a double.
Now you see the second time through the order, and they're starting to put better swings on him, even though first 3 guys in the last inning didn't do so well. But I mean, it's a ball that just scalded off the bat of J.J. Hardy. And, if you're Whitley, you're kind of pretty happy that ball wasn't elevated a little more. I'm sure they're getting someone up in the bullpen, and now Larry Rothschild coming out to talk to Whitley.
Left-hander David Huff is up in the Yankee pen. Shortstop's wearing number 2.
There's a lot of young players that are going to start wearing number 2. I don't think anyone for the Yankees will ever wear it again after this year.
No.
Just a guess.
With you there.
Just a hunch.
Here's Machado. A base hit his first time up. A walk, a homer, and a double for the Orioles so far this inning. Very high, more up than in. 2-0 on Machado.
Yeah, that's one to the fans. It looks a lot worse than what it really was, because it really wasn't that close to the head of Machado. But they are trying to come in on him, that's for sure.
well-located fastball outside corner with the knees, and it's fouled back.
You know what he's doing right there? He's checking numbers on Huff. Since he's warming up in the bullpen, need to get ahead of this thing.
Sharply hit down to third, staggers Solarte, and he recovers to make the play.
Yeah, I'm not sure Solarte caught this or this was caught on self-defense, but that ball was rocketed, and giving credit, he stuck the leg out there, ball hits his glove and drops down underneath him, and dropped in a perfect spot because all he had to do was roll over and it was right there for him. That ball kicks away from him. Machado not as fast as he was because of the knee injury, but that's an easy ball he beats out. That ball bounces anywhere away from Solarte.
Now play onto the side of the mound for Whitley. Joseph is retired, 2 down, Hardy to third. Well, you can feel the electricity in the ballpark, and for a team like Baltimore, there's always more electricity when the Yankees come here, and I think you could say the same about the Red Sox as well. But this is a proud baseball town and a good team, maybe not a great team, but a good team, and maybe good enough this year to win a division championship.
Well, and also it's a good team, like you said, and yes, to win this division right now, you'd have to say, barring any major trade, that they are the odds-on favorite to stay in first place and win this division. But they're an exciting team to watch because of the home run ball. You never feel like they could be out of a game. You know, they could be down 4 in the 9th inning, but you know, get a couple guys on, you know, 2 big swings are back in it, and tied it or winning it. And, you know, as a fan of baseball, I love watching this team play because they have the ability to do damage on any given night against any given pitcher.
And they just did some damage here. Scope with a base hit to bring in Hardy and make it 3-1. And that's going to be all for Whitley. David Huff on his way in. Chris Davis doing some damage this inning, driving the ball out the other way for a home run, part of the 3-run inning so far for the Orioles. Have driven Chase Whitley out of the ball game. 3 runs so far this inning and a man on with 2 outs. Left-hander David Huff is into the game now for the Yankees. He was acquired from the Giants in exchange for cash considerations back on June the 11th, and he has pitched well since joining the Yankees. Just 4 earned runs allowed in 16 1/3 innings as a Yankee. Those are his combined numbers between the Yankees and Giants this year.
But what's cash considerations? What does that mean? Like, if he does good, you have to pay us this. If he does bad, you have to.
Might mean we'll assume the whole contract, or I don't know.
How much could he have been making?
I don't know.
I mean, if it's Cliff Lee or someone like that.
The end of the line pretty early tonight for Whitley.
I think with the offensive struggles that the Yankees have had this year, you can't afford to get down anymore. 3-1. The Yankees, even though they won yesterday, it wasn't like they tore the cover off the ball. Got to try to keep it manageable. That's why he brought in the lefty now to face Markakis and try to end this inning before any more damage can be done by the Orioles.
Markakis hitting a solid .294 against lefties this year. Not as much power as he has against righties, but hitting for a slightly better average against lefties than righties.
Well, Nick has a great inside-out swing. You let the ball travel on him against lefties, which is what you have to do. And he tries to shoot everything the other way against him.
Four for 9 with a home run against Huff. In other news, it appears weather is on the way here in Baltimore. The head of the grounds crew was out talking with Jim Joyce, the crew chief, during the pitching change, and there is talk of a storm headed this way. Oh, and 2.
Well, that's something to look forward to, isn't it? Just can't help it, can you?
I'm just giving the facts.
I know,
I'm providing information.
But couldn't you have waited till it started raining to say it's going to rain?
Whether I say it's coming or not actually doesn't impact whether it's coming.
Yeah,
or
it
not.
does. It's just like the no-hitter thing. When you say he has a no-hitter through 7,
then it's over. So if I say there's a storm coming, then maybe it'll change it, right?
Maybe it'll end.
Yeah.
I see where you're going.
See where I went there?
Yeah, I apologize.
What's the longest rain delay you ever had? Did you ever have like a?
We finished the game at 4:45 in the morning. Second game of doubleheader started about 12:30 or 1.
You must have been in rare form.
That was a peak of our. We were right at the height of our evenings at 4 in the morning. We were just getting started. Yeah, the Fighting Phils were known back then to have some late nights. Ouch.
Yeah, and jam shot back to the mound. Nobody at second, so Huff will fire it on to first to end the inning. Buster Olney will visit with Buck Showalter when we come back. top of the
good people that grind through it, but he's been playing a really good first base, and he's never lost his effort level at any point.
How much can Kevin Gossman help you in the second half?
Well, you know, it's like the guy comes in and says, if you pitch me more, I pitch better. If you pitch better, I'll pitch you more. That's how it works. He's in the middle of a process that all young pitchers go through, and tonight's another experience for him that hopefully he'll take in and be one of our guys down the road. But we got 5 other guys that we like, too.
Bob, thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Kevin Gossman doing well so far tonight. Just gave up the Gardner home run in the first. Not a whole lot else. He's got a 3-1 lead going into the 5th. And they're ready to roll, Truckee. The grounds crew is ready with the tarp because, as we said, it's a coming. Here's Ichiro.
No comment. We have to finish 5 innings, right?
4.5 with the Orioles leading.
That's a good point.
0-2. It's a big game. I mean, you're talking about the Orioles in first, the Yankees are in third, only 4 out. With everything that's gone wrong for the Yankees this year,
yep,
they're only 4 out. So after tonight, it's either 3 or 5 heading into the All-Star break. They've got 10 games left against one another in the second half of the season. Lazy fly ball to center, 1 down.
That's why it appears that if there's some rain, they're probably going to be a while.
The Yankees have more home games after the All-Star break than any team in baseball, but they haven't played well at home so far this year. They end the year with 20 straight against the American League East, as mentioned. They've got 10 after the All-Star break against Baltimore. And the temperature just dropped about 10 or 15 degrees in the last 30 seconds.
Is that you're looking at numbers or what?
No,
I didn't feel it.
You didn't feel it? Well, you're a sweater, right? So look at the flags. Those flags weren't moving.
I see the flags moving now. Yeah.
Oh, you don't feel that breeze?
Well, no. You asked.
I'm a little worried about you.
Well,
you don't look at our banner behind us that's blowing.
I hope it doesn't.
Put this on, guys. This is the weather Crucky doesn't feel.
I hope this doesn't blow away all my notes.
All your notes. Hope that doesn't blow away that sheet of paper. 4:15 in the lobby.
That one I've had all year.
There's all kinds of debris blowing around the ballpark now. That ball is moving around like crazy, and Markakis stays with it. I'm not kidding you. The weather has changed here recently.
This is like the Women's British Open, which I want to congratulate my friend Mo Martin, who won it. Played golf with her a lot in the off season, and my off season, not hers. But yeah, that's a tough one. Nick Markakis has to stay on with that one. Boy, that's why I was glad I was an infielder, because that's when you just call for the second baseman. They should be able to catch better than a first baseman.
Fans are anticipating that it's coming. 2 outs in the 5th. And Solarte pops one up third base side, but this will get out of play.
Yeah, anything hit that way is going to run that way. Boy, that wind's blowing.
It feels like when it starts, it's going to start. Like it's not going to.
Well, the bad thing is now that I can actually feel the wind.
Yeah. If
it starts raining, we're getting wet.
Oh, we're getting wet. Everybody's getting wet, and it feels like it's going to start with a fury when it comes.
Now you look at
the flags. Now the flags don't know what they're doing, because those ones are blowing out to right.
They're confused.
And the American flag is all tangled up in left center right now. Ground ball to third. Nice stop by Machado, and that'll end the inning. We'll see if the game's still going when we come back. by Taco Bell. No rain yet. Bottom of the 5th. Pierce, Jones, Cruz to face Huff. And we are told that the radar shows the rain will likely be here in about 10 minutes, and it's expected to last about half an hour. Could be a lot worse, Johnny Boy. Could be a lot worse.
Never a numbers guy.
Pierce has struck out in both of his at-bats tonight. Huff came on and got the last out of the last inning, replacing Whitley. Yanks a breaking ball well foul down the line. A few thousand fans, maybe not even that many, look like they've gone and sought some cover on the concourse or under the overhang. Most people still in their seats.
If it ain't raining, don't move.
Yep.
Like you said, they're looking at their clocks. They understand in 10 minutes. You just told everyone.
Going to be a stampede pretty soon.
Probably 9 minutes now.
Cool and clear tomorrow night, Minneapolis, for the home run derby.
Yeah, I'm in.
Oh, there it comes. This is rain.
What?
Look up there. Look up there. That's rain. And a little confusion on the count, but that's
There's been
ball
a lot
4.
of confusion.
The 10th annual ESPY Day auction benefiting the V Foundation for Cancer Research is open. You can bid on once-in-a-lifetime items and experience. Also appear in a This Is Sports Center commercial, VIP access to the College Football Championship game, or a Monday night football experience at the game of your choice. Just some of the amazing items and experiences available. The auction is going on now. To donate or to bid, log on to ESPN.com. Adam Jones has grounded out and struck out. Short lead at first by Pierce, being held on by Teixeira. And a big swing and a miss by Jones, 0-2. And here it comes. And there they go. We're in a rain delay. They were ready.
Notice how they take care of the pitcher's mound first.